Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. Have you ever wondered if there is a system that can help you track your stolen or lost mobile phone? Well, there is one now. The Indian government has launched a tracking system that will help you recover your lost smartphone as a part of the Sanchar Saathi portal. You can now download the app called Know Your Mobile and add your international mobile equipment identity, also called IMEI number, to it. The app uses Central Equipment Identity Register, or CEIR, which will enable people to block and track their lost mobile phones with the help of authorities. Remember, while Apple users already have a system for tracking lost mobile phones through Apple ID, Android mobile phones and their owners have been suffering at large and will now get relief. On the show today, what is Sanchar Saathi portal about? How will the new app work, and what are the resultant challenges, if any? Joining me at this point in time is Pavan Duggal, who's a cyber security expert. Also with me in the studio is my colleague Rakesh Khar. I want to come to you directly first, Rakesh. This is an important step in the right direction. Android mobile users, as I said, have been suffering because there was absolutely no infrastructure or app through which they could track their mobile phones.
Shweta, I think it's a great move, but it's 5 years late to my mind. You know, it should have happened as part of the digital India architecture right from the beginning. India is one of the largest mobile phone markets, and on the last count, I think we had about 1.2 billion mobile phones, out of which about 700 million are smartphones. And the propensity to grow this number is very large. So in that sense, if you're not able to secure 1.2 billion mobile phones, you're not securing those citizens who are carrying those phones. So India has a great track record in the digital public goods architecture, which has been talked about all over the world. The world is looking at replicating that model, right from a COVID to the Aadhaar card, UIDAI. But I think, why did someone not think of actually bringing this very basic service to secure the interests of the citizen? So better late than never. In that sense, it's welcome.
Okay.
How does it pan out is something, again, that is not going to be easy, because we have seen that fraudsters have always found ways. They're one step ahead of the curve in this case, if I can borrow a phrase from the world of business, and they're able to misuse it. I think it launches additional level of responsibility on the citizen as well.
Right.
I mean, you can't carelessly pick up a SIM and surrender it and keep your Aadhaar cards, discard it, or keep your Aadhaar cards without any protection, because what happens is that now under the new scheme, as I understand, the SIM subscription is also going to be through a biometric entry, which is very good, because what was happening earlier, Shweta, was that if you pick up someone's Aadhaar card and you got an address proof, you could pick up a SIM. So they're tightening that as well. So at various levels, this particular portal is talking about making life of the citizen better.
Okay.
And if we are able to reduce the crime rate regarding this entire ecosystem by even 10% in the next couple of years, it's going to make life easier.
Absolutely.
And governance index, when it comes to the digital infrastructure, is going to look much better. But easier said than done.
Absolutely. Easier said than done. Also, it's important to mention that as a part of making sure that, data remains safe, people's mobile phones are safer, they're not cloned easily. Government has also mandated that IMEI number, which is essentially at the back of your smartphones or on the box while you're purchasing it, should also be registered at the seller's end and then can be shared by the network operator, so that they can easily mix those two information, so they can marry those two information and track your mobile phone and track your devices. Also ensure there is no misuse, and that is where, Rakesh, I think it's important to understand that it's not just consumers who are suffering at large, because mobile phones are stolen in large numbers. Recently, Karnataka government, I'm told, was able to retrieve as much as 2,500 smartphones, give it back to people, but that doesn't happen in this country so easily.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm told that this portal has already done some good breakthroughs. These are early numbers, but the capability to bring about a dramatic change in life of people who are using the mobile phone. Let's remember that mobile phone is your next best companion. So in that sense, it's replaced, as they say in a lighter vein, it's replaced your spouse in that sense. You spend more time with a mobile phone.
Especially if you're a journalist.
I don't know, across the board, because
yes,
it's so empowering.
That is correct.
At one level, it's so empowering. At the simultaneously, it's also a big challenge if your entire data is, moves out. We've been talking about, credit card to cashless economy. Now it's like just a swipe. And what are you doing it with the mobile phone? You know, you scan and do digital transactions when it comes to hard money using your mobile phone.
That is correct.
So if that is not secure, how do you actually move, you know, to an environment where, you know, we have a greater digital economy being optimized? So this entire talk of digital economy driving the India economic growth story can fall flat if it is riddled with gaps when it comes to gangsters, scamsters, cyber crimes, you know, making their headroom into this.
Okay.
So I'm actually happy it's happened, but it's actually been very late. They should have brought these changes right at the inception. Because the numbers are phenomenal. I mean, 600 million smartphones is the size of some few countries. Medium-sized countries, and 1.2 billion phones. And I think there is need to also bring about, I don't know whether you remember, maybe a few years ago when Nokia was the #1 player in this country, they had brought about this inbuilt system of phone replacement with a capability to destroy that phone. You know, they had these destroyal kiosks at their stores.
Right.
So what do you do with your old phones? What happens? Like they have scrappage policy for cars. All those are important tenets of the new security for mobile phone safety.
And I was about to come to that, because we do not have a mechanism through which you discard your phones just as yet. There is no official way. People often hand it down to the next best person they can find, but you remain the sole owner of the phone that you've handed down. And if in case then it's misutilized or misused, there is absolutely no way of tracking it back to who it belongs to.
Shweta, there's an interesting trend there. What has happened is that earlier, you know, if a phone is not working and you have an aspiration to buy another phone, you would just store it and, you know, dump it. Now, the new, you know, startups have come in. What they're doing is that they're giving you some value for it if it's not very old. So the incentive to get a good price at times makes citizens less responsible in actually noting down, you know, the IMEI number transfer. Like in case of cars, you remember what used to happen? Please ensure that when you're selling your car, that the RC gets changed. You remember that?
That is true.
That's
RC,
true. No,
yes.
no. People just sold cars at a higher price. Same is happening with mobile phones, to my mind, because there's no, you know, so to say, mandated law when it comes to looking at, you're getting a good price from XYZ startup. There are a lot of new players in this space, and you want to use that money to buy a next best phone. And doing so, you're not paying as much attention to see whether the guy who's taking your phone is taking the right IMEI. Suppose one number mistake here, and the incorrect number is misused, and your number shows up. So in that sense, it's an entire ecosystem which needs to be addressed.
Okay.
This is just the first step. So mobile phones, when they are available in such large number, they play such a huge role in your day-to-day schedule. And what happens to them? What is the afterlife of mobile phones? These are also...
So there's no clarity on the
that.
afterlife of mobile phones. We do not have Pavan Duggal just as yet.
So it doesn't matter.
I'm going to come to you with another very important question that comes to my mind. So it's not just about your data that's misused. It's also that you are scammed, and that happens very, very frequently, because we've discussed this over the course of last many months. From WhatsApp to phone calls, your data is available everywhere, and you're being targeted through every social media route. We were discussing this just before, you know,
Fear
the start
concerns,
of this.
Shweta, two concerns. You know, increasingly when in 2014 the Modi government sustained its, you know, this Aadhaar identity platform as the key for, you know, connecting with the citizens on whether transferring cash or other government schemes. All of them, Aadhaar became the instrument. So security concerns were raised, and some of them, you know, fair enough. And now with this portal also, some people might have genuine concerns. But let's remember that, you know, our mobile phone and our digital avatar is available to so many platforms who don't even have servers here. From a WhatsApp to an Alexa to a Facebook to an Instagram, they know exactly what you're doing, how much time you're spending, who you're liking, who you're disliking, what you're eating, where are you traveling. Google has it, you know, it sends a weekly report to you, you know, and at times I'm surprised, did I go there actually? So concerns are fine, but undue concerns are not fine.
Right.
Because you opened up yourself and your entire profile, the digital profile, which is the bigger profile than your actual profile.
That is
so you do a lot of things on your phone to a whole set of operators who you have no idea what they're doing with it.
Right.
So even if the government has the data, which I think you can't do away with in the current environment that we live in, any country needs that access. The government owes an explanation to the citizen that what are you doing with data? Are you in using it, you know, for creating the right digital economy infrastructure, or you're misusing it, as some, you know, activists have been raising the charge. you're using it for profiling, you're using it for, you know, getting into. So that is a concern.
So I want to tap into that concern. How valid is the concern that this data can then be used to profile people, and government is then will be at liberty to know where you are, where your phone is, and be able to, you know, sort of share it if it wants to, in a sense that your data will be easily accessible to the government and what happens to that data thereafter. So the concern around profiling becomes all the more predominant here, especially when government has, you know, not just they know where you are, they can track you through their network, but also now know which phone you use. So literally all information available at their disposal.
So government is one instrument. As I said, all the social media platforms have far greater access to who you are and what you're doing. So, you know, anyone who is using this has to use it responsibly, whether it is Alexa, or it is, you know, Facebook, or it is the government of the day. And you don't know what the respective governments are doing with WhatsApp data. One is WhatsApp, what is it doing with our data? Second is, what is government doing with that data? Because they're sharing the servers there. So all these are very valid questions, and ultimately the responsibility of each stakeholder in this ecosystem is that they make citizens' life better.
Right. Okay.
And believe me, if someone is doing something wrong, which is also the case, you know, we have, you know, terrorism as a global spectre, and India is one of the biggest victims of terror. And we have had, you know, case history of internet connections being used in, you know, the Mumbai terror attack. David Headley, we remember that. He used someone else's internet connection in nearby residential society, hacked the, you know, ISP, and then he was using that, and the poor guy got, you know, so to say, had to face some difficult time. So in that sense, I think if there is a mechanism to ensure that crimes of all kinds get mitigated by use of technology without profiling an individual on who or he or she is, in that sense, it's a fair game.
Okay, and before we move on, you know, that brings me to my last question, and that is, as you rightly pointed out, up until date, there's been no way of not just identify who this phone belongs to if it's been handed down over a course of time or over a period of time from one person to another, but also who a SIM card belongs to, and that has been misutilized a lot many times. If your IMEI, you know, phone number or your IMEI data is linked to your phone number, it will be easy to identify who that person belongs to. But then there is also a sense of responsibility that you've got to deregister the two every time you're changing your phone. So essentially bringing in more transparency and helping, you know, government tame, and you also keep a track of how many mobile phones are registered in your name, and so easing the process there.
Absolutely. I think, you know, in that sense, you know, when you go to a store and now he asks for extra security measures, you may get irked in the beginning, but ultimately it's all for the safety of the consumer. So I think, you know, people should cooperate, and when you take a new SIM, and if there are additional security steps, like on Gmail, you know, they keep asking every 3-4, you know, months that you want to update your number, is this the right way? There is a two-way security system. So as many layers of security as possible for citizen safety, and if there is any misuse, for the national safety.
Okay. Pavan Duggal is joining us.
Okay, wonderful.
He's joining us on the phone line at this point in time. Pavan, thanks very much for taking time out. We've been discussing the new Sanchar Saathi portal and Know Your Mobile app, the app that will allow users to link their IMEI with their phone numbers, and essentially if their phone gets lost, and you know the story, you can easily help find that phone. Authorities will help find you that phone, and you know, I want you to come in as far as the implications on cybersecurity of this new app is concerned. How much will it help people essentially, you know, protect their data and protect their mobile phones? How do you read these developments? You know, Rakesh said that this was long time coming, should have happened about 5 years ago, but never too late.
Clearly, I think it's never too late when you talk of cybersecurity. There's an old Indian saying that the moment you wake up, treat that as the morning of your day. So I think we've woken up, and we have now, through this particular app, through the website, have sought to make the mobile ecosystem of India far more cyber secure. Now, we realize the fact that India doesn't have a dedicated law on cybersecurity. Our national cybersecurity policy is in tatters because we have not been able to implement it, and we're all awaiting the national cybersecurity strategy. But having said that, once you are able to come up with this kind of an app, where you can actually provide effective services to the lay users to help them find out where the location of their phone is, and also to have information of the phone, what they're buying, as whether it's stolen or whether it's being used in some criminal or terror activity. That's a great step forward in empowering the ultimate users, because you are empowering them by giving them more information. Once they have more intelligible information, they are in a much better position to come up with an intelligent decision making. Also, with this now website coming in and a pan-India coverage of the website, it's very clear that the cyber criminals will have to tighten their belts, because no longer can your phone be in another state, and you can your cyber criminal can just rely. He can be tracked down, and the law enforcement can go after him. So great step forward, but it's one step at one time. What is important to be seen is how effective will this be enforced in the day-to-day working of this team. That's something that we'll have to wait and watch.
Okay. Okay, I am hoping that more and more people will download the app. It's obviously going to be very helpful to Android users. But to your assessment, Pavan, what sort of mitigation in crime are you looking at? To what extent do you think the new app will help mitigate cybercrime and cyber criminals, and perhaps help in getting back not just the data that we fear will be lost, but also mobile phones that are lost and never recovered?
Well, this particular app and website is going to contribute its contribution in the form of drop in an ocean. So let's not expect magical wand results by these kinds of approaches. Why? Because the golden age of cybercrime has already arrived. Cyber criminals are laughing all the way to the bank with the increased online financial fraud, phishing, and identity thefts being constantly happening. These kinds of mechanisms are only one way to plug the loopholes. There are many other loopholes available in the system, and cyber criminals would be more than happy to keep on exploiting those loopholes which have still not been plugged. So while it's a great step forward, don't expect that by doing this step, cybercrime will come to a zero, or we will enter into utopian peace society. That's not going to happen. On the contrary, the criminals are now going to find out ways on how they can bypass the kind of efficacy of the services that are provided by the app or by the website. So I think we need to do far more than just coming up with this. We need to strengthen our legislation. We need to effectively enforce our laws. And ultimately, we need to keep our users far more empowered by making them far more aware. So once we are able to enhance capacity building amongst the users, that could be another good starting point in the fight against cybercrime. I think cybercrime is not going anywhere. With each passing day, it's getting constantly worse. What these mechanisms and these processes are indicating is that the government is slowly waking up to the need to effectively fight the menace of cybercrime. But please understand, cyber criminals are 10 steps ahead of law enforcement agencies, and they will continue to keep on coming up with new innovative mechanisms to come up with a new innovative cyber criminal design.
Absolutely.
So let's see what happens.
Right. And in fact, that is something we've been discussing here. Cyber crimes will keep up, will continue to come up with new innovative ways to do what they do best, but a positive step in the right direction. Pavan Duggal, thanks very much for your time on that story. Employees working in Haryana can now enjoy a glass of beer or any other low-content alcohol like ciders or wines in their offices. In the new excise policy 23-24, the Haryana government has allowed employees working in large corporate offices based in Haryana to bring low-content alcohol to their offices. As per the policy, employees in a corporate office having at least 5,000 employees and a minimum covered area of 1 lakh square feet in single premise can obtain a license. On the show today, what are the new rules? What does it mean for employees in Haryana, in Gurugram to be particular, and their company's liquor rules, impact it will have on their company's liquor rules? Joining me at this point in time in the studio, my colleague Gulam, Jeelani. Rakesh Khar continues to be with us. Also joining us is Rahul Singh, who's the founder of Beer Café. I want to come to you first, Gulam. You've been tracking policy developments in Gurugram. What does the new policy entail?
Thank you, Shweta. So it's a policy which was released last week. It will be implemented from June 12. And it's a policy which will continue for 1 year. It may be extended. So there are many changes that has come in this Haryana liquor policy. One of the major changes that's being talked about is this allowing corporates to consume and sell, have liquor on the premises, which is rare in any city, at least in North India. So Gurugram or Gurugram, whatever you we may call it. So it is known for two things. One is the liquor there is served is cheap because of the low excise duty, and these liquor vents are usually open till 12 midnight, right?
Okay.
So government has made some changes in the policy which includes these allowing corporates to serve the liquor. So there's a condition on it. It's not that every office can serve liquor. So it's as you rightly mentioned, it's for the office which has at least 5,000 employees. It's for the office which is spread over 1 lakh square kilometers. It's for the office which has a particular area of canteen also. For that they have to procure this license which is called L10F license. So that is the new thing that has happened. So this, for procuring this license, obviously the offices will have to pay some fees which is around, I think which is around 10 lakh, and then 3 lakh is the security deposit that they have to give. So now since the policy was released recently, there is not much clarity on this, but till now what we know is that corporates can have consume liquor within the premises, and this not every liquor, it's just low alcohol,
low content alcohol. So
right.
basically not all kinds of liquor.
It's beers, it's breezers, beer,
ciders,
wine.
Yeah, okay.
Not the high alcohol content. But again, if you look at the policy, it has pros, it has cons. Obviously, the corporates will be happy because they won't need to organize events outside their offices. They can do it inside only, right? But there are also, Gurugram is a city known for these crimes related to alcohol consumption. As I said earlier, liquor vents are open till 12 midnight. Liquor is cheap in Gurugram, right? So recently what had happened before this policy came, so the government had increased VAT and excise duty. So there is an argument within the Haryana government that we sell cheap liquor in Haryana than we do in Delhi. So there are efforts, especially from the Deputy Chief Minister Dushyant Chautala, who happens to be the excise minister also. He has made it clear that we will try to bring our prices at par with Delhi, because if Delhi is making money from the liquor, why won't we?
Absolutely. And it's a very good attempt. I want to bring Rakesh here. Rakesh, although there are a lot of, in a sense, stoppages here from allowing everybody to consume alcohol at all times. You've got to have 5,000 employees. You've got to have 1 lakh square feet of area in a single premise. And perhaps, only allowing a limited few corporate offices to serve alcohol on premise. But all in all, a very innovative way of collecting more excise.
Exciting. Shweta, there are two ways of looking at it. One is, as Gulam rightly identified, there's a political economy piece to it, and second is the corporate piece, which is essentially HR-led. So let me deal with the political economy piece first. I'm a little surprised that in the election year that we are headed for the general elections, and Haryana also goes to elections, they brought in they brought in the liquor as possibly an election issue. You know what happened in Delhi? Repeatedly Delhi's ability to raise excise, raise excise revenue by bringing in 1+1 free scheme, which was abandoned later, which is at the heart of now this entire scam. So anything to do with liquor is not easy. So and then it's a BJP ruled state. They opposed Delhi's the so-called liquor freebie scheme. They said Bevda state banane ki koshish hai. So in that sense, that charge would come flying at the BJP government in Haryana as well.
Right.
The other piece is that revenue. See, revenue in the fiscal federalism which we keep talking about, in that sense, every state is looking and targeting greater revenues. So in that sense, they would be approaching, I don't know what the numbers look like, but they must have certain calculation that with a reduced rate of VAT, it's already become the hot spot for, as he rightly pointed out, hot spot for liquor sales till 12 midnight, and then even beyond that in Karobar, as it's called.
And in a hot hours also.
And in early hours till late night.
Right.
So how much does it translate into revenue? But that is possibly a key consideration. Political fallout, I think they'll stick some criticism. The corporate piece now, the corporate piece is, when I was looking at the fine print, as Gulam rightly identified, and you also referred to that, much of the excitement would go away, because 5,000 employees in one entity with 1 lakh square feet would take about 70% of the companies away. So people will have to, really hardly anyone to really immediately get into the fray. But yes, it's an employee delight. Whosoever is entitled to be there, and it's a HR nightmare.
That is correct.
Because at one level, HR would be too happy to announce the scheme. At another level, any possible misdemeanor in the office is also to the credit and debit of the HR office.
And since we don't have an HR representative, but you've been central to many ethic committees, and we discussed this in the morning, so I'm going to come to you on HR perspective in just a while. Rahul joining us at this point in time. Rahul, what does it mean for liquor business in Gurugram? We talked about how easy it is to access liquor, how easily available it is, how cheaper it is. This is an attempt, of course, being made as we're reading it by Haryana government to collect more in form of excise duty. But for somebody who operates cafes and sells liquor in Gurugram, what does it mean for you?
To start with, we are a Gurgaon based, our first outlet opened in Gurgaon, that's where our headquarters are. So we were really happy that this policy is coming force from Gurgaon, so that's our hometown. More importantly, we've always been pioneers in promoting low on alcohol beverages, which are far more healthier and safer than hard liquor. It's all about weaning people away from spirits towards healthier drinks like beer and wine and RTDs. From a government perspective, like rightly said, optimization of revenue, creating an ambience for legitimate and responsible drinking. Most importantly, providing good quality liquor at a reasonable price is very important. So it's a balance the government has to do between optimizing the revenues as well as creating a safe and responsible drinking culture. You'll always have issues, that's part of the game. But at the end of the day, like we are in 23 cities as a chain. We're a homegrown brand, we're an Indian company, an Indian brand. We started off in Gurugram from our first outpost. I can tell you we serve about 1 million people every year. Okay. We do not have any issues. Okay. We have no issues.
On data points, I want to specifically ask you, what sort of sales are you looking at? And after this policy comes into effect, are you presuming that the sales number will go up, which they will, I am sure. And have you been able to calculate that? Have you been able to foresee what sort of revenue it's going to get you?
To begin with, Shweta, have you mapped Gurgaon from the latest perspective?
Yes.
So the perspective is, if you talk about the policy at whole, in any case, the revenue collections for the Haryana state for the year, which is coming to an end on 12th of June, has been the highest ever. The amount of jump they've seen, and it's all particularly a lot to do with Gurgaon. Haryana means the main pivot point or the tentpole movement comes from Gurgaon. Next year, the government is looking at a 10,000 crore revenue. So obviously they're looking at a huge revenue. It's one of the largest revenue for a state in any case. And this is across the country. UP as a state has the highest amount of revenues coming in from liquor industry. So it is an important part for the social development for any state. Coming to the specific part of the L10F, the policy we are discussing today, which is, allowing low alcoholic consumption in corporate parks. This is going to be not a big revenue earner because the guardrails itself are pretty large. 100,000 feet office with a 2,000 feet canteen with a 5,000 employees, you're already talking about a handful of people qualifying. So it's going to be a very small amount, but it's to actually start off. I think by next year, once they see how it goes, they'll go and probably lower this barrier because you have to start with something. You can't just say every office is allowed. Because what will happen is if there are 10,000 offices in Gurugram, all of them will have a bar. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to start with something which is large. I can count about 8 to 9 companies already. This policy comes in place on 13th of June. Our team's already discussing with these companies where we will go and actually enable them with the infrastructure. We're a reliable brand. We're already a known brand, and everybody prefers something that they can rely upon. That's where we come in the picture. I don't think it's going to be a big revenue number, but it's the start from something which didn't exist.
And I want to bring you in here at this point in time. I think Rahul's pointed something very interesting, which is if you were to allow everybody, now every corporate house would have a cafe running in their premises, but this is to ensure that there are a limited number of few people who qualify with these parameters, and these are very stringent parameters. Hardly 30%, as Rahul predicts, would qualify, handful few. As far as the implication on rules within a corporate is concerned, many corporates do not really allow liquor to be consumed at all. Not in premise, that's a far-fetched idea, but not to consume liquor and come to office. And they will therefore have to relook at some of their company rules.
Absolutely. I think the entire HR framework or the code of ethics, as it's called, will have to be redrafted. That's one way of looking at it. Simultaneously, if you send a normal HR, birthday greeting message, that also could possibly change and say that, let's have a drink at, say, at post-work hours. So these are the two spectrums. The other, on a serious note, what possibly could happen is that attrition, companies with smaller number of employees you could see this as an incentive and move on to companies with larger number of employees. And HR, could also throw this as a carrot that, come on, we have the CTC, we have the DCTC, which is gross cost to company. With that is also, beer on the table.
You have the gym membership and then you have the beer on the table.
As I said, the entire HR nomenclature when it comes to employee engagement would get a new spirit.
Absolutely. And as far as ethical issues is concerned, because many organizations and many a times being drunk is also misconstrued with being badly behaved, and that's where I think you have experience.
Yeah, I think
Rakesh.
as I said rightly, Shweta, we need to change the entire HR code of conduct while allowing this capability from the government to the the business owner, which is the enterprise, and the supplier, which is the companies like the liquor companies. I think it's incumbent upon the organization that's hosting it to ensure that not even one case of misuse is happening. And it represents a paradigm shift. Imagine if someone was even seen to be smelling having liquor, would be asked to step aside, as they say, step aside, and then action would follow. I've dealt with such cases in my early organizations. So now if you are,
there are cultural implications as well.
No, it's a cultural paradigm shift in the company.
That is true.
And it has also got to do with India opening up, and it's like the IT sector where people go in shorts in Bangalore for a traditional North Indian company or even South Indian company, say textiles, they would be shocked. But I've seen people walking on the shop floor, very casually dressed. Also in, say, media and technology companies. So every sector has its own, orientation. And the more relaxed, more liberal you are, liberal doesn't mean that you impinge upon the new code of conduct. I think ultimately the responsibility of using this facility, if I can call it facility, our gentleman on the guest is saying that it's a change of social order, rightly so, is exactly on the employee. And of course, the organization also must bring in, there are CCTV cameras in organizations now. So anyone who is looking at availability of this facility has to be doubly responsible.
That is correct. And as far as what Haryana government is expecting out of this change, so there's not just a change in cultural paradigm, as Rakesh pointed out, there's also going to be a lot of changes on premises for these corporates who are hoping to serve alcohol. You have the fine prints of the policy with you. Apart from whatever stoppages that there are or the provisions of the policy, what is Haryana government planning to achieve through this?
So, and Shweta, if I may add to that question, Gulam is a senior political journalist, so he's also tracking. Do you buy the point that I raised when it comes to this may politically backfire?
So absolutely, sir, I agree with you, because Haryana, not only we have general elections next year, we also have Haryana elections later this year. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good issue for the government, for the party to be to be precise, to raise.
The opposition or the party?
For the party for now, and it will give opposition, because they also need money. Let's talk in the terms of, they also need money to contest elections.
Given that this has been a big fallout issue in Delhi, this has been a big fallout issue in Delhi, and we are still reeling under the tremors of it. I want to understand, what does it tell you about how politics works in the country?
Oh, you are asking?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
See, it's a dichotomy, right?
That is correct.
You have had an issue in Delhi wherein the deputy chief minister is behind bars. He's already behind. Almost the party is, it's finished. Only the one leader is left. We don't know who comes next. And you have a neighboring state where the party, which is not, which is an opposition party for them, is coming up with a policy which is encouraging consumption of liquor on the office premises. There is a flip side. There's a political flip side to it. Congress will come one fine morning, they'll come and say, see what they are opposing in Delhi, they are promoting it. Gurugram, which is Haryana technically, and a poll-bound state. It will have political ramifications, if I may say so. But again, there's also a flip side on the ground, which is like people who want to drink will drink anyway, on office or outside office. But inside office, maybe it will change their behavior, as Rakesh was saying. It's a cultural paradigm shift. Maybe it will change the culture of drinking we have. We know the karobar, how bad it becomes at times. Yeah, we know how bad it becomes. We know the drunken driving cases.
I'm a little surprised, Shweta, that it has come from someone like Manohar Khattar, who is himself a very traditionalist, comes from his certain background.
But we don't know if he's a teetotaler, do we?
We don't know. He is a teetotaler. Gulam would know more. But I'm not sure about his deputy CM.
Okay.
So
it's basically Dushyant Chautala's brainchild, because it's his department.
And also for BJP, if I may take a long shot at it, Shweta, the middle class youth, educated working executives there's a view which has sort of say been proved in Karnataka that they have moved slightly away, if I can use the first, pivoted away from BJP.
Right.
So, there may be a long shot view that, given the Gurgaon demography, it's essentially very upwardly mobile youngsters, millennials who want to have a good life, and for that, if a beer is served in office, why not? It'll add to the color.
It adds to the pleasure of what you can get and buy, and in fact be served inside the premises. Rahul, coming to you, I'm not sure if you were consulted before the policy, or your organization or similar organizations were consulted before such a policy came into action, if you were know-how of the policy, but understanding from you at this point in time, given all the contours of the policy, as you rightly pointed out, not many organizations are going to be included, limited number of few organizations, but overall, in terms of business, what sort of expansion are you looking at? Will you be allowed to set shop inside the premises? How do you look at this panning out in the near future?
Let me just tell you, yes, we are part of a lot of policy making across the country. One of the reasons I'm the trustee for NRAI is because I believe in the whole advocacy about, social drinking, safe drinking, and, at the end of the day, wherever you're allowed to drink in any state, we are part of that policy making in any case. That's one of the reasons for being part of the association. More importantly, with Haryana, my own state, and I belong to Gurugram, it becomes even a more of a personal project where every time a Gurugram policy has come in for the last 10 to 12 years, I've always been, in the forefront discussing and providing a safer and a better responsible drinking culture for the city. In fact, I moved to Haryana in 1996 when it was a dry state for 2 years. So you can imagine now it's as wet as a watermelon if I have to.
I hope not as red as a
coming to the point, yes, this particular let's say consumption of liquor in a office existed. It's not that it didn't. There is a license called L12A, which basically is a temporary license. It comes for 5,000 rupees. It's called a function license. Any corporate office, not in IT and SEZ, can actually go and take this license. And a lot of people take it. So they do a function, for example, a Friday evening, or it's a Founders Day or something, and they'll normally go with, light alcohol. They'll never have hard spirits. It'll always be beer. We've always been forefront of that. So we have a team which does this. We get the license for them. This is a permit. It's a 5,000 rupees a day, and it was happening. And I think with the license for a larger outfit, where they were doing multiple events and I had to do on different floors, this absolves that issue. It's like, let's say, you have a small office, you want to do a little catering, you'll just go and ask for a pastry shop. But if you're a large corporate, you'll have a very large canteen. So at the same time, if you have a physical infrastructure in place, which is to do with a permanent bar, which is again beer and wine only, which have chillers and everything in place, which means I don't have to run around getting a 5,000 rupees per day function license. I get a 10 lakh rupees license for the whole year, which a big corporate can afford, and I have everything there. And it's not that it's on the tap. It's not that anybody, you don't have lunch in breakfast time, we don't have lunch at dinner time. We have lunch and dinner times. That's what canteens are for. Similarly for this, an HR or the policy ethics committee or whoever decides can figure out, okay, I'm going to only do this on a Friday evening between 5 to 7 before you guys go home. Don't drink in the car, just drink with your colleagues. It's a light on alcohol drink, and just be happy about it, and take a cab or take an Uber or whatever you have to do. At the same time, there might be some startups, obviously not at this 100,000 square foot level, but who might do it every day. They might just make it into a culture where you could do it. And we work across the world, not in India. We work as a co-working place across the world. Beer after 5 is there. Any WeWork in the world, you can drink beer after 5. It's a community place, and nothing has gone wrong anywhere in the world. Nobody has come to fist fights or burn the place down. WeWork works because of that reason.
Okay.
So it's not about social
Rahul, we're quite cognizant of your love for Gurgaon, and we buy that theory. But tell me, there might be possible criticism that why only beer? I mean, we've seen people getting high on beer also. It's an alcohol finally. So, I mean, how do you manage that and navigate that charge that possibly, beer lobby has prevailed upon Haryana government and got this through?
Yeah, the narrative, it's not from me, it's the worldwide phenomena. To wean people away from hard liquor, you have to promote a socially acceptable drink which is low on alcohol, which is beer and wine. It's a worldwide. Russia, as an example I'll give you, was never a beer drinking place. When they promoted beer, and they promoted policies around beer. It's one of the largest places. The vodka sales have gone down in Russia. So it's a
But
worldwide
in the
phenomenon.
B2B community, I mean, alcohol business would, be little, might cry foul and say it's discriminatory.
I would not say so, because across the world, beer and wine have a special privilege. They have special licenses. Even Gurugram, I'll give you, if I have a full-blown license, it costs me now, it was for 18, it's 15 lakhs. But if I take only a beer and wine license, it's only for 4 lakhs. It's promoting cafes, smaller places. There are Korean eateries which have come out. They serve a soju. A Japanese eatery in Gurugram serves a sake. Why would he take a full-blown license to serve whiskey? People coming to a Japanese eatery do not want to drink a whiskey. They want to drink a sake. So
Okay.
it's all to promote eateries. It is all about promoting healthy drinking. That's what we are all about. That's the reason I got into the beer cafe business. I didn't do a whiskey cafe. As simple as that.
And if we had a nutritionist on the panel, they'd tell you no drinking is healthy drinking, no alcohol drinking is healthy drinking. But since we don't have one, we're going to end it at that. Thanks very much, Rahul, Gulam, for joining us with your perspective. Shifting focus, Tesla appears to be renewing its bid to foray in India after Tesla announced in 2022 that it was shelving its plans to sell cars in India by importing them owing to high duty. It is now being reported that Tesla executives are going to meet government officials in India today to reopen dialogues. The meeting is expected to be in view of Tesla's attempt to expand and develop local sourcing of components from India for Tesla car. Remember, back in 2022, the government's in fact refused to accept Tesla's request for a reduction in import duties on luxury cars, which are at 100% today. Now, there were also reports that Elon Musk was putting pressure to reduce the import duties without committing to make or assemble in India. Those requests were not entertained. We are discussing Tesla's renewed efforts for India and what it means for the EV market. With me continues to be my colleague Rakesh. Rakesh, it appears that India is once again a market that Tesla is eyeing, this time without negotiating on whether it should produce or not produce or make in India.
I personally believe that it never took eyes off India market. It can't afford to do so because India is such a lucrative market for any big global car maker, and Tesla obviously is the toast of the town. So in that sense, and also it wouldn't leave the negotiations right away. I think it'll do a hard bargain, and there are few lessons here. Tesla, went about in a wrong manner to begin with. You can't do negotiations with government of India, any sovereign government on Twitter. I mean, even if you own that platform. So he put out a tweet, saying that we are negotiating, but this is a difficult market. So you can't put adjectives on any sovereign nation, leave alone India under the current dispensation. And that's not how we should have gone about it. And Government of India's view on what Tesla's problem is not specific to Tesla. It's the Atmanirbhar Bharat pillar is essentially to promote domestic manufacturing.
Okay.
And if you look at other advanced auto markets, China, when it opened up its auto market, it also mandated that we need to have local manufacturing.
That is correct.
When India opened up its market, there was at one point of time 100% foreign ownership. So I think India is reversing that paradigm. And now that we have a very pronounced Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, and Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme in auto sector is matched by a very, very vibrant auto component industry. It's not that we are trying to create an industry for Tesla. There is a very vibrant.
There is already a growing.
And so Tesla would do well to partake of that opportunity. Though I'm told in some limited fashion, it is through a circuitous route using Sona steering as some parts. One has to verify those details, Shweta. So finally, if it is, in geopolitics and geoeconomics, people like Mr. Elon Musk are bright, they're great success stories. They need to understand you need to negotiate with governments of the day in a far more mature manner. And if his team is coming over here, I don't know what the representation of the team is. Is it like, mid-level, senior level? Is it number 2 to Musk? Because that will also determine the kind of meetings
seriousness they have for
and
India.
Also the kind of meetings they'll get in India.
Absolutely.
If he's sending a junior, I think a joint secretary will meet him. So, and today's mood in Government of India is not that very placatory.
Absolutely.
One can have an academic debate on that, whether that's the right way to go about it. But under the domestic manufacturing also, Government of India has taken a dramatic turn we brought in the PLI scheme, which is for the other manufacturing
And I wanted to bring that up because in 2022, when the talks were at their peak and we were hearing comments from the government that Tesla is likely to make a foray, I still remember Nitin Gadkari sitting on a platform saying Tesla will come very soon and will sell cars that will be accessible, affordable, not to all but to some. But then suddenly we saw a pause in conversation. What also government came on record to say is that we have enough schemes, including PLI, that will be advantageous to Tesla if it opens a market here, if it, if it works in line with Make in India policy, if it's able to even assemble, if not manufacture here. But it appeared at that point in time that the talks were not progressing. But this is a renewed attempt.
This is a renewed attempt. In that sense, it's welcome, and I hope it's a senior level representation so that it merits the senior level, matching profile from the government of India, and then the conversation moves forward. There are two core contentious issues. One is that Tesla wants to bring, what we call knockdown cars made in China into Indian market. So that again is a bit of a sensitivity which he should be conscious of. Second, Government of India in the Make in India paradigm has moved completely away from the CKD and SKD format, which is completely knocked down and semi-knocked down. It is insisting on a local partnership. The majority control can still be vested with a foreign player, as is the case as we were discussing. Most of the auto players are majority owned by that foreign player. And as I said, we have a thriving auto ancillary industry which can really aid his dreams. Yes, he has a very bright EV portfolio which will add to the Indian EV landscape. One fair point he has, he's currently the customs duty is 100%, which makes the cost of that car exponentially high. Though I do believe that people who have love for Tesla and Elon Musk will buy that car at that price, because that's how globally it has panned out. Moving it from 100% to say 60% over a period of time is potentially possible. The other valid point is that if he's seeking zero concessions, that's not possible.
Or what his contention was, as sources were reporting, as media was reporting, is bring down the duty from 100% to a 40%, which we are giving to 40 or 60%, which the government said we are not relenting.
There is possibly a meeting point somewhere. That depends upon the negotiations. The other important point that he is raising, which I think merits examination, is because it's an evolving landscape. What he's saying is that you cannot tax, even at 100%, a fossil fuel car being brought into India and an EV, which is environment friendly car.
That is true.
So I think Government of India itself is moving to a non-fossil fuel automobile mobility environment. So there is merit in that piece. If he is able to ride his expectations and be fair about it, I think Government of India will give him a hearing. He had actually set up a company in Bangalore, which was registered, which was then abandoned and shut down. There were about 3 senior executives that had been hired for this job, Shweta, which have also now gone. I don't know who is, so to say, fronting, his operations in India. But I do see Tesla executives talking about lobbying with the Indian government. I think lobbying is a reality, but it's not used in the common parlance. You'll have to have a business case. That business case, if it is empowering, I do believe that people in the MORTH, Ministry of Road and Transport, and Ministry of Heavy Industry will look at that dispassionately.
And given that Elon Musk has been absent from operations at Tesla for a while now, focusing on Twitter solely, he's been tweeting and also trying to build pressure on government to renegotiate import duty. But I think now that he's back in action, we're given to understand that he's going to closely monitor and hire what he said, his statements, that I'm going to look at actively hiring Tesla. If I was advising him, I would have told him that you come out yourself and set up a meeting. I think this particular Prime Minister, yesterday Ashwini Vaishnav, who holds 3 portfolios, very important economic portfolios, he's made a statement yesterday, saying that all the global semiconductor manufacturers I've met them in US, and I've invited them to come here, and many of them, about 12 of them, have shown interest to do it. You can't do business in India from a remote location, even if it's Twitter. That is true.
There's also, Shweta, we must ask this question, why is he now suddenly got interested? There is a backdrop to that, to my mind.
Okay.
He had made heavy bets for China. But couple of points, the frosty relationship between China and US. Ultimately Tesla is a US company. In that sense, that is having a shadow on, so at both levels, the American congressmen are also pushing Tesla to, so to say, go slow on Chinese investments for the larger geopolitical, geoeconomic relationships. Second, there's been a fall in his market share in China. And third, there is resentment. So Chinese government officials, according to media reports, Reuters and Bloomberg, have, so to say, accused him of potentially data leakage with operations in China, in Shanghai, and also causing social unrest. So the social unrest is a new fear mongering that is happening in China. Anyone who is outside of China, even if he is deeply invested in that state, they fear that there is data leakage, and his satellite mobility project is again an interest area that China is watching. So his love affair with China is also not that rosy, if I can use that phrase. So he will have to.
It's a love-hate relationship.
Not necessarily hate, but the love quotient is coming down.
Okay, the love quotient is
coming down. And what he is doing is also he's betting heavily now on Indonesia and Thailand.
Okay.
So these are two markets where he's and now India fits in the bill, because Indonesia and Thailand, if he does well in India, both these countries will not have the kind of volumes that India promises.
That India can.
Not in the short term, but in the medium and long term.
Absolutely, and perhaps learn from Apple's example here.
Absolutely, and we have been discussing the auto story in India, especially the passenger vehicles, Shweta, has been undergoing a massive change. Again, it's a paradigm shift, if I can use that phrase. We have seen that the consumers post-COVID have bypassed the entry-level cars. So there's this huge appetite for going for, ye dil mange more, something bigger, something brighter, something more costly.
Okay.
So Tesla would have been imagining that, well, it's a long shot, but there is a market.
There is a growing market.
And also Volkswagen and Mercedes. These two companies are doing well in India. Not as much Volkswagen as Mercedes. They also are into a format where they've tied up with local manufacturers to actually, do some, to navigate this charge of 100% import duty rate.
Right. Okay. So Tesla there, of course, trying to meet with government officials in India, trying to revive whatever negotiations were had not continued beyond 2022. So trying to take a leap from where it was and hopefully will enter India market. We're all very positive for Tesla. But we're going to end this bulletin on that. And with that, it's a wrap on this bulletin. Thanks very much for watching.